copy again. So in this video we're going to go over 5 restorative poses, and these are the 5 basic restorative poses. This is one aspect of Iyengar yoga which is incredibly important. Sometimes the body just needs to rest. We need to restore the energy levels. So I'm going to show you these 5 poses and the setup for these poses, because that can sometimes be a bit of a barrier to practicing them. I'm going to use props. So behind me I've got a bolster and a blanket, we've got a belt and bricks. If you don't have these props, then use towels for blankets, use pillows, you maybe have 2 or 3 pillows together for the bolster, and you can always use hardback books for the bricks or just some firm cushions. But yeah, do give these poses a go. We're going to start with Adho Mukha Virasana, which is downward facing hero pose, and we're going to use the bolster and the blanket. Okay, so you're going to start big toes touching, knees apart, and draw the bolster in between the knees. So it's nice to have a blanket for this one, which is going to keep the face from being squashed into the bolster. As we come forwards, we want to keep the buttocks down on the heels. So if you find that the buttocks lift, you could take an extra block if you've got one, or a blanket or a cushion, and place it under your heels. Okay, then we're going to walk the hands forwards and just rest the forehead on the blanket. Okay, so you want to have the breastbones supported, buttocks pressing back, and the neck nice and long. So this pose has been shown to be quite useful for sufferers of long COVID, because actually it's the back body that we need to spread, and there's more space for the lungs in the back body. So if you feel breathless at any point, this is a nice pose to get into. Okay, if you start to feel tired, you can just bring the elbows down to the floor and hold the front of the bolster. Just watch that the shoulders don't drop forwards though, so keep the shoulders drawing back so there's space around the sides of the neck. Okay, and you can stay there for 2 to 3 minutes. If you find that it's uncomfortable with the head facing down, you can turn the head sideways. Just make sure you try and do even amounts of time with the head looking both ways. Okay, so that's the first pose, Adho Mukha Virasana. Okay, right, we're going to move to the second pose. This is a classic restorative pose. It's Supta Konasana. Okay, so I'm going to show you the classical setup. Same setup as just the pose before, so blanket and bolster, but we're also going to take a yoga belt. So you could use any belt, but a D-ring belt is the best really. Okay, and you're going to make a big loop in your belt. For restorative poses, I would recommend having 2 bricks or 2 nice thick cushions that you're going to put either side of your legs. Okay, so you're going to sit in front of your bolster, be a little bit away from the end of the bolster. Okay, I've got a nice big loop in my belt, and then you're going to bend the legs into Baddha Konasana, bound angle pose. So the soles of the feet come together, and then if you haven't got a knee problem or a hip problem, you draw the heels in towards the groins. Right, if your bolster's very high, you might want to, and you've got a back problem, put a support under your buttocks. Have a bit of an extra blanket or a cushion under your buttocks. Okay, from here, we're going to take the looped belt, put it over your head, and have this tail end of the belt moving that way. Okay, and then the belt goes around the little toe edge of the feet. Okay, and then I'm going to tighten the belt. Don't have it too tight, and draw the belt down so it's around the sacrum and not up around the waist. Okay. I move the buttocks towards the heels, lengthen the spine over the bolster. The chest is lifting, and then the blanket, quite thick, comes in right to the tops of my shoulders. Nice to have the rounded edge of the blanket into the tops of the shoulders. Now these bricks, I prop the outer calf and the outer thigh. So if you've got cushions, just wedge them right in under the outer legs. Okay, and then the tops of the shoulders move down to the bolster and the arms rest out to the sides, palms facing the ceiling. Okay, so you can close the eyes, you can take, oh, can't reach it, but if you've got an eye pillow, yep, you can use the eye pillow in this pose, or just a little scarf over the eyes. And you want to stay here for a good 5 minutes. Okay, so if you have your period, this is a very good pose to come into. Physical fatigue, yeah, this is a good pose. And lots of other benefits. Okay, to come out of the pose, you get rid of your supports, push the hands down, loosen the belt, and stretch the legs out. Okay. The next pose is, well, I'm just going to add this one in, Supta Swastikasana. So this is with the legs crossed. Okay. This is just an alternative to Supta Konasana. It gets the hips to grip in more, this one. Okay. So legs crossed, arms out to the side. Okay. If you have a knee problem that hurts the knee, then obviously just avoid this one. Okay. And if you do the legs one way, then make sure you change the cross in the legs. Okay, and the buttocks, top of the buttocks moving down towards the heels. Okay, arms out to the side. Right. Okay, so the next pose we're going to do is Supta Virasana. Now this pose a lot of people can struggle to get into. I'm going to show you just with the bolster and the blanket initially, and then I'm going to give you another variation. So with this pose, we have the knees slightly apart, the front of the feet pressing down to the mat. And as you sit down, you can just move the calf muscle back and out to the side. Okay, right, so you're sitting between your heels. You can hover the buttocks at this point. I'm just going to come back a little bit. Again, lengthen over your bolster. Okay, and then the blanket. Okay, so my buttocks now moving towards the backs of the knees. Yeah, arms out to the side. Okay, so that's Supta Virasana. Now it's quite strong on the thighs and the front of the ankles. So let me just give you another variation of this one. So I'm going to use this little bit of wall here. You can obviously go into a bigger bit of wall. Okay. And I'm going to take 2 blocks and lean them against the wall. Okay, the bolster, this is just to stop the bolster from sinking. Okay, so blocks behind the bolster. Okay. And then you can take support to sit on. Yeah, so you've got a bit of height under the buttocks. And then, so you can adjust the angle of this bolster. You can lie back, the head is supported on the top of the bolster. You can either take the arms up and over the head, or just have the hands resting down by the side. I'm rather wedged in by this radiator for this one, but you get the idea. Yeah, so it takes the pressure off the ankles, less pressure on the thighs. This is another way to try Supta Virasana. Okay, right. So let's just quick check. Yeah, just one more pose to do actually. Setubandha. Okay. So for this one, we're going to use the bolster again. We want to have a blanket to soften the neck on the floor. Okay, so bolster, make sure you've got no wrinkles under your blanket. Okay, nice and smooth. And then I'm going to use 4 blocks at the end of the mat. Okay, so if you haven't got 4 blocks, you can use the wall. You can just take the feet to the wall, or yeah, have a little stool or something like that. Okay, if you've got a yoga belt, Especially for restorative practice, nice to use a belt for this one as well. Okay, so I'm going to sit on the end of the bolster. Okay, the belt goes around the thighs, so it's nice and secure with the knees apart. Take the buttocks to the end of the bolster, lengthen the spine down, and then I'm coiling the tops of the shoulders, so try not to keep the shoulders moving this way. We're trying to roll the shoulders down towards the floor and keep sliding off until the back of the head is on the floor and the tops of the shoulders, okay? And then you can stretch your feet to the wall or to your support. And take the feet out so that the heels are out slightly and you get a feeling of the thighs rolling in, okay? The chest lifts and palms facing the ceiling, okay? So in this position we get this Jalandhara Bandha, the chin lock, which is where the brain can cool and we get a stabilising effect on the emotions. So quiet, soft breath. So unlike Supta Virasana, where you might not be able to stay quite as long, that's the last pose we did, this pose you should be able to stay for a good 5 minutes. If you feel any strain in the back, because obviously a strong opening on the front of the body, just bend the legs up, rest the knees together, take the feet apart. Okay, to come out of the pose, so obviously you stay long with this, I'm just showing you the setup. You're going to lift the buttocks, push the bolster away, bring the back of the bottom down to the floor, arms out to the side, and just rest for a moment with the back flat on the mat. Okay, and then roll to the right hand side and come up. Okay. There is one more. We're going to do Viparita Karani. Sorry, the Supta Swastikasana, the cross-legged version, that was just a little extra for the Setubandha Konasana. So this is our 5th and final restorative pose. Again, we're going to need the wall. I'm not going to use my little ledge this time because I need more space. Okay, right. This is officially known as Viparita Karani, and it's not the most elegant pose to get into, but once you're in, it's worth it. Okay, you're going to take your bolster. If you haven't got a bolster, you can use your 4 blocks, and that goes for actually any of these poses. You can always use 4 blocks instead of the bolster and put a blanket on top. Okay. Right, I'm going to have a brick and a blanket. Okay, so I'm going to roll my bolster up in the mat. So you want to make sure you've tucked it in quite tightly, like a sausage, and roll it up. Now you can put more height on the bolster, but I'd say especially if you're a beginner practitioner, it's harder to get into if you have lots of height. So let's start with a bolster. You're going to take your brick and put it next to the wall, so it's on its narrow setting there. And then get your bolster next to the brick. Okay, again like Setubandha, the pose we just did, I'm going to have my blanket here so that we get that softness, encouraging the body to soften. Now to get into this pose, you're going to sit on the end of your bolster and try and sit on the wall. So sit the top buttock bone up the wall. From there, you're going to swivel. So you get a swiveling action, so you come onto your sacrum, okay, come carefully onto your elbows. You could do a little wiggle here to make sure the sitting bones are moving towards the wall, and then lower yourself down. Okay, once you're there, you can press the elbows down, yeah, and I'm putting the heels to the wall and moving those sitting bones again closer in. We have the brick here so that we feel that the buttock bones are slightly dropping down towards the floor, and you can always just bring the bolster a little bit closer in towards you. So we've got this nice lift of the chest, the abdomen is soft and spreading, Yeah, and the legs are stretching up the wall. You can have the feet slightly apart. Once you're in position, you can have the arms out to the sides, or if that's uncomfortable, on your shoulders, just have the hands out like that. Okay, so again, you can stay in this position for a good 5 minutes. Yeah, with these restorative poses, we want to come into them, fall still, like Shavasana, focus on the breath, and then just inhabit the pose. So the purpose isn't to get into them and then think of all the things you have to do. It's more of a discipline of the mind now. We have to keep the attention on that still point to allow the brain to settle. Okay, so Viparita Karani. To come down, you just bring the legs in towards the chest and then preferable really just to wiggle off the support. Okay, and then you can always cross your legs on the bolster. You can do Baddha Konasana on the bolster, your toes at the wall. Yeah, whatever feels comfortable, so that you're just coming down gradually. And then you bring the knees in and roll to the right to come up. Okay, so there's your 5 restorative poses and your 1 bonus pose, which was the Swastikasana, Supta Swastikasana. So you can choose any one of those and just do it for 10 minutes, and that can be a practice. Yeah, it doesn't have to be complicated. If you've not got all the props and blocks, just find one that works with what you do have. The final restorative pose is, of course, Shavasana, and that's perhaps the most important pose, but we'll cover that in another video. Okay, thank you very much.